Good evening, and welcome to Night Drives. This is the first episode. Let's find out what this show is going to be, right? I'll be your host, and you don't need to know my name, largely because I use several different names in my daily life, and I don't really know how to introduce myself to anyone anymore. I'm creating this show because I like to play with audio, and I wanted to create a space where I could just simply talk freely, low-key monologue, about the subjects where I kind of don't feel like I can wander off that much in real life with other people, like astrology, topics about astrology and love and relationships and the combination thereof, but also individually. And yeah, the experience of being a person. So yeah, love, astrology, and being a person. That's kind of what I'd want to talk about here. And to give you a sense of where I'm coming from in regards to, these topics primarily. I can't really explain being a person right off the bat, but I just kind of am, whatever I am. But in regards to astrology, astrology's always been like an interest of mine, but I kind of got properly into studying it in like mid to late 2018. I don't even really quite remember what happened. But that's when I started paying attention to mundane astrology and to actual astrological transits, rather than just like knowing some facts about my personal birth chart and like what my rising was and everything like that. And I've taken a few classes. I took a year-long course. I took a year-long astrology course through Heather Eland's program a couple years ago, and I took some relationship astrology classes offered by I can't remember her last name, so I'm just gonna say her YouTube channel is called Truth in Aspect. Wait, let me actually check and make sure. Yes, okay, I just checked. Yeah, she's Jewel. I don't remember her last name if I ever knew it. Can't remember. But yeah, she has YouTube videos online, Truth in Aspect Astrology. And these were like different. I've seen, I've kind of taken influence from both modern astrologers and traditional astrologers. There's a lot of like traditional and Hellenistic influences for me, but some more modern people also end up slipping in here and adding their influence, and I find that very useful too. But yeah, as far as my own astrology, and like maybe an explanation for why I want to talk about love a lot, I am almost a new moon baby. My moon is balsamic, just like a day before a new moon in Libra. So both my sun and moon are in Libra. I also have other things in Libra, other points, other calculated points, and another planet. And yeah, and I'm a Sagittarius rising, and I have a Scorpio stellium of personal planets. So, Pluto's one of them, but they're all just really close to each other. So for me, Pluto gets to be kind of a personal planet because it's like making out with Mercury. Like, what are you guys doing? Calm down. They're just making out in the swamp of my 12th house. And in regards to my background, I guess, my resume with the topic of love, I don't know. I've always approached love, and especially like romantic love, romantic relationship, kind of studiously. And being a relationship nerd essentially is one of the things that led me into ethical non-monogamy eventually in my life. Like, I had a long-term monogamous partner, and we opened the relationship eventually. But one of the things that was really that influenced me, one of many things, a lot of soul searching went into opening up that relationship and me entering, what I call the polysphere. I don't think that's a proper term. I just use it kind of casually personally. But one of the elements that made me move toward that was that I really liked being in a long-term relationship, and it kind of sucked that I was like, if I am in a long-term relationship, I only get to have this long-term relationship of this type, of like a romantic type, of a cohabitation, romantic partner, long-term relationship with one person. That seems kind of like a huge bummer. Like like I would love to have that experience with more people without having to shut down and like demolish, like a pre-existing relationship. So but one of the several things that have has influenced me to create this space for myself in the form of this podcast has been just spending time on Reddit, honestly, and reading posts on Reddit from mostly people who are younger than me, like, and not that much younger than me, only like 10 years or so, right? But sometimes teenagers too, like sometimes sometimes a bit younger. But yeah, I will read these Reddit posts from people who are younger than me, and they seem so scared about their relationships, and they seem so concerned and worried about like not ever being in one, or feeling really scared at any change in their relationship, or being like really young teenagers, like 16 or 17 or 18, and like dating and like having their first partner, but then also being just terrified at the idea that they wouldn't stay together because they're so young. And one of the reasons that I wanted to give myself a space to talk about this is because like posts like this and other kinds, they give me a lot of thoughts. They really bring out a lot of opinions, and I wanted to be able to kind of just like speak them out loud and not just write paragraphs on Reddit, right? Because I think they could be helpful to people who aren't reading those posts. Like, I want to try to be what voice I can be in this world, like reminding other people not to be afraid of their own lives, not to be afraid of their life, not to be afraid of change in their life, not to be afraid of what might happen, of what seems likely, especially in regards to like relationship-based stuff. Like, I am not one to be like, don't worry about your health. Like that would be extreme. I'm not saying that. You can be worried about your health. Like, I can't help you there. I'm also worried. But yeah, I want to remind people, and I want to stand as a reminder, and this is how I kind of approach, my spaces on the internet when I'm seeing people, especially also in the astrology groups that I frequent, where I'm seeing people who are looking at relationship compatibility, especially with people that they aren't really in a relationship yet with, or are in really early stages. They're just talking to somebody and they're like, oh, like this is their chart and this is mine, and like what's up with this? And I feel like there's so much odd fear and anxiety, and I'm like, I want to find a way to encourage people. I can't make people worry less, but I would like to encourage people to worry much less. Because especially in regards to astrological relationship compatibility, I feel like using astrology to question if you're going to be compatible with a potential romantic partner, I don't think it has to take power out of your hands, out of the hands of the people who are doing it, who are trying to use astrology in that way for their lives. But I think there's a much more empowering approach you can take, and that's something I want to advance. And I try to remind people on, like, my little online groups. And I try to remind people that it doesn't matter until it's happened, almost, especially about, relationship compatibility. It doesn't matter if it hasn't happened. If you aren't already in a relationship with you can't like look at like a stranger, or like someone who's practically a stranger to you, look at their chart, compare your charts, do the synastry, make a composite chart, and like figure out what your relationship would be. You don't actually know what the relationship would be. You don't know how those planets could like actually interact, because they manifest in different ways. They can manifest in a lot of different ways. There could be an aspect you're not seeing. You're not going to actually be able to, there's a limit to how much of the future you can predict, including with a divinatory tool. And you're not really going to be able to predict your relationship with a person that you don't really know. Even a person you do know really well, you might not be able to know what that relationship is going to be if you're moving it from like a purely platonic space into a romantic relationship. There could just be like something that you never encountered in one mode of relationship that is kind of a surprise to you in this like new zone. So my general philosophy with relationship compatibility astrology is that I want to be surprised. Like, I want to be like 2.5 years deep into a loving and healthy relationship where I feel deeply nourished, like emotionally and mentally and spiritually by my partner. And then, 2.5 years in, find out they're like a Gemini rising. I want to just be like totally humbled by astrology and by the possibility of other humans. The possibility of other humans to be wonderful, right? Like, I don't want people to ignore red flags and all that, but like, here's the thing: an astrological placement is not a red flag. It's simply not. You could have the situation, and I see this in my own life, and I've heard about this from other people, where you run into a recurrence of a particular sign or a particular placement in other people in your life that seems to be a red flag for you. And it might be for you. It might be for you for those people. And it doesn't mean that anyone with that particular placement is like doomed for you. But something like that, like if you run into pretty much every Virgo you meet is someone you can't really have a functional relationship with, that's not saying something about them. I mean, it could say something about them, but if you're looking at astrological patterns and relationship compatibility, and you're running into something like that, where like, oh, I keep being interested in Virgo suns, but then like it never quite gets to a certain point, or like they kind of end up giving me the ick after like 6 weeks or something. That might be a clue to look at the Virgo place in your chart and be like, okay, what's that house? What are the topics of that house for me? Like, what are they literally lighting up with if they're a Virgo sun, right? If that's the placement you're looking at, like, what are those people lighting up in my own life for me? Is perhaps the position of a Virgo sun for someone else squaring or creating some other not so comfy cozy aspect with one of your placements with a really sensitive point? How is your Mercury doing? What's your Mercury doing? What is the ruler of Virgo in your own chart doing? Is it in a weird place? Is it doing something weird? Is it in conjunction with a malefic? Is there something going on? This is an opportunity. It is an invitation for self-reflection. It doesn't mean that you have to be in a relationship with a Virgo sun one day, but it also means like you don't have to write it off. You can use these things as gateways to explore yourself, explore what that house topic means for you. Like, Virgo is my 10th house. Granted, I kind of used this example. It's not exactly how I've experienced, but I've had a little bit of like, oh, I can't really get to friendship, right? With a lot of Virgo suns. Virgo suns seem to be good in positions of mentorship and like as teachers. Yeah, I think multiple astrology, like people who have been astrological teachers for me, whether like formally or kind of makeshift based on like my own intake of their content online, right, have been Virgo suns. And I'm like, okay, so that's a form in which a Virgo sun works in my life and adds to my life, enriches my life. But when I meet them on like personal grounds, just in the world, it kind of like never really gets to friendship. And I kind of respect them as people, but we just kind of don't click and we don't really have fun together. Like, even my like one of my first friends in childhood was a Virgo sun, and we kind of had this problem where like it wasn't really actually fun to hang out together. We kept trying because we just like lived in the same neighborhood, and we were roughly the same age, so like, pair them up together. But yeah, it's like, oh, there's a block there. And I'm like, I have some problems with that. I have some problems in that area. I'm like, okay, what's I don't have anything in Virgo, but it is doing some weird things. Someone with Virgo placements is going to come into my life and like create certain aspects. They're going to create actually some harmonious aspects. They're going to create some squares also, they're going to create some squares in Sagittarius from a Sagittarius planet that won't be great. But they'll also create harmonious aspects to planets that I'm used to being totally unaspected. Where, like, yeah, they're going to create like a sextile to my Scorpio planets. And my Scorpio planets are not used to being aspected. I think this is one reason I love Pisces aggressively, is that like a Pisces comes into my life and they aspect those like lost, lonely Scorpio planets that only touch themselves. That sounds gross, but like, but that only like form conjunctions with the other Scorpio planets because they're all like in a mush, like within 4 degrees of each other. But yeah, but those planets don't touch anything in my own chart. They're only like, they're all alone. They're like literally all alone, only talking to each other in my 12th house. And so whenever someone's coming in and making like a trine, like a beautiful harmonious trine to those Scorpio planets by being like having strong Pisces placements, I'm all for it. If someone comes in with Virgo placements, they're still creating a sextile. That's very cute, but it's kind of just a little weaker. And I think there's an element to like maybe in creating a weaker bond with my 12th house planets, but an uncomfortable, like there's a malefic in my first house. Like there's a malefic in my first house of Sagittarius, and something in Virgo is going to square that. And I'm like, I think that might be the stronger pull, because a Virgo sun for someone else's Virgo sun, creating a not the most strong but harmonious aspect to my kind of lost 12th house planets. I'm like, this is cute. We could do something here, but yeah, if it's running into an angular malefic, you know, if it's squaring an angular malefic in my chart, I'm like, I think we can't. I think that there's just like, yeah, it's a block. So yeah, and it doesn't mean there's anything like wrong with those people. I don't have anything like personally against Virgos. I just have a bad track record. But I also believe that there could be like, you know, it's not like the possibility is closed off that I'll ever have like a proper Virgo sun friend. That's entirely within like the possibilities of this reality. Like, I do not believe in writing off any placement, any sign. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. I kind of understand from like I think about one of my past relationships, and I think about some placements that they had and how they fell into my chart, the overlays, right? They had a lot of planetary energy that fell into like all of my dark houses, into like 2nd, 6th, 8th, 12th. And I'm used to 12th. Got something in the 2nd as well. But yeah, I'm like, I'm used to 12th house energy. I'm used to the Scorpio. I'm like, whatever. Everyone's got Scorpio. Everyone I know, everyone I play with in my life has Scorpio placements. I'm like, yeah, that's just synastry I'm going to have with everyone. But yeah, having so much synastry in my dark houses, that is something that honestly does make me a little like, oh, I'm kind of hesitant if I feel like I'm kind of interested in somebody and I know their birthday and I can check their chart, not a timed chart, but like if I have like a general sense of the day, then I'm kind of like, oh, if I kind of like this person but they have that kind of similar those similar placements, it does actually pull me back a little bit. And I don't want it to, but it does. And I don't think that there's like, I'm not going to hold myself back from connecting with other people who might have that kind of similar synastry, because like things can manifest in so many different ways. I'm not going to close myself off from it, but it's kind of good to know that there are certain manifestations of those synastry overlays that I've already been acquainted with. And I can see how they can like go wonky and they can kind of go sour. And so I see someone with like a certain placement or a personal planet in a certain sign that might fall into, I don't know, my 6th house. And I'm like, I have to make sure, because I had this relationship before where someone else had a really personal planet there, I have to make sure that I don't take advantage of them. That I do not, there's no like falling into some sort of like servant role, or like where they are kind of my servant in a way, or I am really leaning on them for help, especially with my, like, I have some chronic illness stuff, so I have to make sure if I'm going to engage with this person, like personally and long term and socially, I'm not employing them as my aide or anything. Like, I'm just like, we're going to be friends. Like, I have to make sure my motives are pure. And I have to check what's my motivation. Yeah, I have to kind of check my own impulses and kind of just keep an eye on that and be like, what am I doing? How am I approaching this person? What am I doing? So I kind of try to use that to keep an eye on some tendencies that might be easier to slip into, because I've had experiences where it kind of, seemed fine at first, but then slipped into a more negative place. So I understand kind of having some resistance to revisiting similar synastry that you've had in the past with a previous partner, or like another bad relationship. Doesn't have to be a romantic partner, obviously, but like any other bad, combo that gave you a lot of pain or traumatized you, or like was just mutually terrible. But yeah, like, it makes sense, but don't write people off. It makes sense, and you can be mindful about that, but do not write people off for that. Like, keep your wits about you. But remember that you are a powerful being. You are a powerful little monster on this earth, and we love you. And you can discern whether a pattern is recurring or if it's changing. If this is a break in a pattern, or this is a temptation, like you're experiencing a temptation that you've had it in another relationship, in another connection with similar synastry, someone with a similar placement affecting your planets in a similar way. You can look at that. You don't have to like close your eyes tight, tie on the blindfold, and jump into the brackish water. You get to look at what's happening around you. You get to look at the other person and how you guys are interacting, how you two are interacting, and make decisions, informed decisions, mindful decisions about what you do and how you're going to approach this relationship. And, just because your ex was like a shitty Aquarius or something, you don't have to curse the Aquariuses forever. The Aquarii, the water bearers. And sorry, Aquarius, for using you as an example. I have nothing against you. You're my third house. Love you to bits. You're great. I keep dating people who have Jupiter in Aquarius, and it's just like, it really works. It's really helpful for communication ease. And as someone with like a Mercury trapped in the 12th house, retrograde, it's I really appreciate some ease in communication. So I love the Aquarius placements for helping me out there a bit. And now I've talked for a long ass time, so I think I'll end it here. So thank you for listening to this very first episode. I have been your host, a nameless cryptid, and this is Night Drives.